This NFL Week 4 Player Props edition of the Propcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Game Time. Snag the tickets without the stress. Use promo code CFBX on your first purchase to save $20. Download the Game Time app and use promo code CFBX. We're also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Play the Underdog Pick'em in college or NFL and win up to 20 times your money in one game. Plus, every Sunday they're giving away $100,000. Use promo code SGPN at Underdog Fantasy for a 100% deposit bonus of up to $500. Roster brought to you by VSiN. Sign up now and save 40% with their football season special when you use promo code SGP. That's vsin.com/subscribe, promo code SGP. Finally, we're brought to you by Hall of Fame Bets, the sports betting research platform for parlays, player props, and game lines. Download the Hall of Fame Bets app or visit hofbets.com. and use promo code SGPN to get 50% off your first month and start making smarter bets today. Welcome, everyone, to the Propcast, part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. It is Thursday, September the 28th, currently 2:09 on the East Coast, here to get into our NFL Week 4 player props, plus our anytime touchdown props as well. But I got my guys here with me. First, you guys know him as a Motor Sports King of the world, the hardest working man in the sports betting industry. It's my main man, Rod Villagomez. Rod, how's it going, my friend?
Making left turns in my head even as we speak, Munaf. I'm excited once again for a full weekend of football. And it starts tonight, obviously, but we're gonna. Man, I tell you right now, so race weekend is so crazy for me because I've got usually the race on the big screen and then, several different football games going all over the place. So, I try to pay as much attention as I can to the football games at the time. But, race, I'm almost glad for the race season to almost be over so I can actually concentrate on football now again.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's that storm when we talk about August, September, October. That we have 3-4 different sports clashing at the same time, and you have some sports that are ending, and then you have some sports that are starting as well. So yeah, it's definitely messes with your mind when you handle or you cover as many sports as we do for the network. But also joining me, I got my guy here with me, actually crushing it in the WNBA. I can't wait for the NBA with my guy here, Chris, as well. Chris, how's it going, my friend? How you doing this Thursday?
What's going on, Munaf? What's going on, Rod? Feeling good, man. We a couple days away from some really good games. I think that we got lined up here on Sunday. We got a 9:30 Eastern time game on Sunday, so that'll be the first. But we also got Thursday night football, so definitely check out the pod from yesterday if you guys haven't had a choice to do that. And let's get into it. Some money to be made, as we start to get some of these props.
Yeah, man. Well, I think we're starting to hit our stride here, headed into week 4, kind of hitting the getting at the appetizer phase of the NFL season with 3 weeks of data points in the books for us. So hopefully we can keep capitalizing on, some of the bets and the prop bets that we have made. I think we've had a really good start to the season. Hopefully we can continue that into NFL week 4. You guys know how we do it here. We'll do 3 player props plus a best bet, and then of course our anytime touchdown prop bets for week 4. So let's kick it right off. Rod, lead us off, my friend. What do we got for player prop number 1?
Well, I know my host, and he's a Texans fan. So let's start with the Texans quarterback, the red hot CJ Stroud. His passing touchdown number is set at minus 1.5. It's set at 1.5. He's not going to throw negative 1.5 passing touchdowns. But 1.5 passing touchdowns for CJ Stroud. I'm actually going to take the over on this one. I do think his potential to throw 2 touchdowns at least is there because he's done it in each of his last 2 games. He did it against Jacksonville. We know Jacksonville. We were very high on Jacksonville this last offseason, just coming into it, high on the team, and they outdueled them 37-17. CJ Stroud showed that he is actually pretty much a force to be reckoned with in this league, throwing for 2 touchdowns there. And then he took down not a tough Indianapolis team, but still, a team that should have put up more of a fight against them than they did. So for CJ Stroud to come out and throw 4 touchdowns in his last 2 games, I think that speaks highly of his potential. And, this week he's going up against a team that I don't think is going to give him a whole lot of pushback either. The Steelers have allowed 2 touchdowns to be thrown in 2 of their 3 games, including 2 to a former 49ers quarterback in Jimmy Garoppolo last week and the current 49ers quarterback in Brock Purdy to start the season. The only quarterback to not throw 2 touchdowns against the Steelers so far in the first 3 games is Deshaun Watson, and I'm not surprised about that at all. So I'm definitely high on the potential for Stroud to throw at least 2 touchdowns in this game. Maybe this will be the first one that he ever gets 3 touchdowns in this game. So I'm trying to find the number for you. I wrote down the prop, but not the other. So the over passing TDs is at plus 124 over on DraftKings right now. So at plus money for him to do what he's done the last 2 weeks, I'll take CJ Stroud to throw 2 touchdown passes in this game.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's gotten off to a really good start for this Texans offense. And I think that, especially for me being a Texans fan, it's kind of, surprised me because, I mean, historically, I know it's cliche that Ohio State quarterbacks really don't do well, at least longevity-wise in the NFL, but I think that he's gotten the proper coaching. He's been accurate. I mean, we saw last week against Jacksonville. He had a phenomenal game. And, even through the first 2 weeks prior to their first victory last week, I mean, he's been smart with the football. He still hasn't thrown an interception, which is absolutely amazing for him to do as a rookie quarterback in this league where, you're trying to sometimes play catch up as a rookie quarterback coming from a collegiate level, especially Ohio State, where, everything is pretty much easy for you in that offense. But I mean, look, he has the weapons. They might not be the traditional household names, but, football junkies like us, we know the names. I mean, I've praised Tank Dell on this pod for the first 3 weeks. Nico Collins, we talked a lot about when we did our division previews. At the tight end, Dalton Schultz, a seasoned veteran. So he's got the weapons there for him to, be successful. And again, for this Steelers team, I think that their strength has always been defense, but I think that defense has taken a little bit of step back. I think they're still trying to find their stride as far as defensive side. Hopefully it's not this week, but maybe it's next week for the Steelers team. But I think that, again, CJ Stroud, especially with all the offensive line issues that this team has had, I'm very happy to see the success that he's had so far this season. And especially this at plus money here, Rod. I do love it for CJ Stroud. Chris, any thoughts on CJ for this upcoming week as far as his passing touchdowns?
Yeah, I like it. I like it as well, Rod. A couple things kind of stick out to me. So first off, Pittsburgh is a really great run defense. So you're going to have to toss the ball. We always talk about that logic, right? Like, how will they score the ball? How will this defense? How susceptible is this defense to giving up points? And typically it's through the air. And I mean, I don't want to give him too much praise, right? Because it's Munaf's guy, but Stroud, he's really like exceeded a lot of expectations. We'll say. I saw a segment earlier this morning on Good Morning Football. Just talking about the Texans kind of finding their guy, and I think it's highly impressive for him not to throw an interception so far. 64% completion rate, I think, is also very, very interesting and surprising as well. So yeah, I like the number, especially at plus money.
I agree 100%. Chris, take us to player prop number 1, my man. What do you got?
So I'm going quarterback as well. We're going early morning, so this one might be kicked off before you wake up on Sunday morning. I'm looking at Desmond Ridder. I kind of talked a little bit about him yesterday, but I'm looking at his pass attempts to actually go over. Number sitting at 28.5 last time I checked. A little bit of juice, only minus 112, so not too much juice. And this is a one of those plays that kind of just makes sense in my mind. You look at this Falcons offense; they love to run the ball. 30 times per game, ranks 8th in the league so far. But you look at the Jaguars defense, and they're actually a top 7 defensive team, only allowing 84 yards per game on the ground, which is pretty consistent with what they were last year. They allowed the 13th fewest rush yards last year. Each of Jacksonville's first 3 opponents have actually passed for at least 30 attempts, 39, 41, at least 30. So 30, 39, and 41 through the first 3 games because their rush defense is so good. And you look at Ritter. Last week he passed for a career high 41 attempts against the who did they play against last week? The Lions, right? Yeah. The Lions. We talked about that yesterday. So I just think with them facing another top 10 defense, Ritter's gonna have to go out. I mean, I know they don't want to put him in that position, but he's gonna have to go out there and move the ball because Bijan Robinson and the rest of that backfields may not be as successful as they plan to be. So I like Ritter to go over his 28.5. I feel like he can throw 30 to 33 times. Also, if Jacksonville could somehow get out to a lead, which has been really difficult for them to score the ball, then that plays a little more into it as well because they're playing from behind and you got to pass the ball in.
Yeah, I mean, you take a look at the Jacksonville Jaguars rush defense. They're around top 8 in the categories that do matter, right? Opponent yards per rush attempt, they're number 7. Opponent rushing yards per game, they're number 7. They're only allowing 84 per contest. And then you take a look at opponent yards per rush attempt for the Jaguars, number 6, only allowing 3.4 yards per carry to the opposition. And again, I think that you're right that number 1, familiarity for this Jacksonville Jaguars team, or if you want to call them the London Jaguars. I mean, they're familiar with that road trip, right? I mean, after these many seasons where they've made that trip across the pond, probably staying at the same hotel. They know how, the facilities and how that trip all works. I think that's only to the advantage of the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I think their offense, despite it struggling over the last 2 weeks against the Chiefs and the Texans last week, I think this might be a game where you probably see them open up a little bit with Trevor Lawrence, with Calvin Ridley, with Christian Kirk, Travis Etienne in the passing game. I think this is an opportunity where they do score points, which again goes into your prop, that then the Falcons are going to have to throw the football led by Mr. Desmond Ridder. So I think that they'll be able to limit the rushing attack of the Atlanta Falcons because we know that that's their identity on offense with Bijan, with Tyler Algier. And I think that, again, for Ridder it's not a crazy number either, right? It was a 31.5, Chris?
Better. 28.5.
28.5. Okay, there we go. So only 29 times here. So I think that definitely that's in the realm of possibility in this game across the pond. Rod, any thoughts on that?
I mean, you're right. Jacksonville has basically turned that London game into another home game. I mean, it is a home game on their schedule, but it really is a true home game now. So once you get into routine, it's easier for the team that's done this more than the other team that hasn't to settle into that rhythm. And, the practice facility probably feels familiar to them. And so, yeah, this is a game where I think it's a get-right game for Jacksonville all the way around. I've got another prop that ties into that morning game as well that will kind of feed into Chris's narrative on how this is going to go as well. So I like this one as well.
All right. Before I get over to my first player prop for NFL Week 4, let me tell everyone about Game Time. Buying tickets to your favorite events shouldn't have to be stressful. Game Time is a fast and easy way to buy tickets for all sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun that you're going to have at these events. They have great flash deals and last-minute tickets on their app. They're easy to find and buy tickets for every kind of event in here, not just sporting events. And the best part I love about their app is anytime you go in to buy tickets for a particular event, you can actually get an image of your seat view at that particular venue, so you're not going to have any surprises. We do actually get to that venue. Their lowest prices are guaranteed. Plus, they also have event cancellation protection. Forget planning months in advance. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. Get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and much more. The Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. That's how confident they are in their prices. And buying tickets, it's easy. You can do it in a matter of seconds. 2 taps and you're all set to go. And then once you buy those tickets are sent directly to your phone. You don't have to haggle through your mailbox or even your email box. No, they're right there in the Game Time app. So all you got to do is download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code CFBX for $20 off for your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CFBX for $20 off. Download Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. And we're also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy has a way to play alongside your favorite football team all season long. You can win up to 20 times your money in a single game by going 5 for 5. And from now until October 4th, Underdog is matching 100% of your first deposit up to $500. And they're also giving away $100,000 on Sundays on Underdog Fantasy. That's a total of $2 million in prizes all season long, $100,000 in prizes this week, and $10,000 to 10 people this week alone. New sweepstakes on every week of the NFL season. So watch along, make your picks, and make a little cash over on Underdog's mobile app or their website, underdogfantasy.com. And when you sign up with promo code SGPN, Underdog will double your first deposit up to $500. Again, that's Underdog Fantasy, promo code SGPN. All right, guys, let me take you over to my first player prop, and I'm going to go over to that game between the Rams and the Colts this week. And I'm going to take Mr. Matthew Stafford to go over on his passing yards in this game. That number is currently at 256.5. And if you kind of watch this Rams team in the first 3 weeks of the regular season, they've been a pass-heavy team thus far this season. I know we talked about the Cam Akers trade, and how it hasn't really panned out for him. Now he goes over to the Vikings, and they're putting their trust in Kyren Williams in that backfield. But Stafford is fourth in the league this season in passing yards per game at 303 yards per game. Additionally, Stafford is second in the league in pass attempts per game as well. The Rams are also number 6 in the league in team passing per play percentage thus far this year. And they're also number 4 in team passing yard percentage as well. So, I mean, it's pass with Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford through the first 3 weeks of the season. And Stafford has faced the Colts 4 times in his career. Now, this does go back to 2012, so it may not be relevant, but the most recent games he faced the Colts was in 2020 and in the 2021 season. And he threw for 336 yards in those games and 278 yards, respectively, in those 2 games in those 2 seasons. And you look at the Colts' pass defense as well, right? They rank number 20 in opponent yards per completion and number 22 in opponent yards per pass attempt. So, you kind of take a look at the 2 wide receivers or the 3 guys on this offense right now for the Los Angeles Rams before they hopefully do get Cooper Kupp back in week 5. But, we talked a lot about Puka Nacua. We've talked about Tutu Atwell. Tyler Higbee has been involved in the offense as well. So I think that we'll see more of a passing attack again this week for Matthew Stafford and the Rams in this game. So I'm taking the over 256.5 passing yards as my quarterback prop here for NFL Week 4 with Mr. Matthew Stafford here. Chris, any thoughts on Matthew Stafford, my man?
Yeah, I like it. It just kind of makes logical sense to me again. So we look at offensive plays per game for the opponent, and the Colts this is a really hard number to digest. 73.3 is how many plays teams are averaging against them. So if you give Stafford that much time, Sean McVay as well, he's going to that many plays like that. That's an insane number. They actually rank last in the league as far as allowing opponent plays. So I love that number. And you look at you gave out all the numbers as far as them passing the ball. They're super pass every team. I got them listed at 63%, 64% of the time. So yeah, I love that number for Stafford this weekend.
Rod, thoughts on Stafford?
I hope so. I'm starting him over Derek Carr in a league, so I need him to get all the yards he can. And yeah, and it's possible. I mean, this team, Matthew Stafford was not brought in to hand the ball off in LA. So they need his arm, and they need it now, as a matter of fact, because that Rams team will not be able to compete with the 49ers if that team does not start stepping it up even more than they have been so far.
I mean, look, this is a big game for the Rams as well, right? You win this game, you're 2 for 2, 2 and 2. And then you're getting hopefully Cooper Kupp back next week. I know he was put on the IR. The possibilities are still there, but especially when you're in a division like obviously with the 49ers and the Seahawks in that division, and the Cardinals haven't looked as bad as some of us would have thought they would have been. But I mean, if they want to have a chance to make the playoffs, these are the games that matter. I think it's going to be on the shoulders of Mr. Matthew Stafford here. Rod, take us over to player prop number 2, my friend. What do we got?
All right. Well, I'm going to take you into that London game as well, and we're going to go with Travis Etienne. We're going to take his rushing total. It's set right now at 68.5. I'll take the over on this one. This is at -110. is where I found it. You can shop around for another number on that as well. Travis Etienne has gone over this number twice already this season. He did it in the opening game against the Colts, and he did it last week against the Texans. He's not really averaging 4.6 yards per carry in that game against Houston, but they fed him the ball 19 times, which means they are still committed to the run, even though they were getting spanked by the Texans. They were still committed to the run. So 19 for 88 against Texans. Like I said, 18 for 77. The volume is there for Travis Etienne. Plus you look at what Atlanta's been giving up lately. 128.3 yards average per game, rushing yards on the ground. That's 9th most in the league as far as what they're giving up on the ground. Look back at what running backs have done against them in the last 3 games. Miles Sanders had 72 yards for the Panthers against them. And then Chuba Hubbard actually had 60. So, he was only 9 yards short of actually hitting this himself. So they'd had 2 running backs in that game above that number. For the Packers, Aaron Jones was not doing well and not even in this game for that. A.J. Dillon, though, 55 yards, close for the backup who doesn't necessarily get a lot of carries for that. Last week, Jahmyr Gibbs, the rookie, hung 80 on them by himself. So I think Travis Etienne, again, kind of like what Chris was saying, they'll probably jump up a little early on this Atlanta team, which means that most of the second half or a better part of the third quarter into the fourth quarter, they'll be kind of feeding the ball off to Travis Etienne. And if they do that, the yards come with it. 69 yards is not a very high threshold for Travis Etienne to hit here. So I'm definitely on him over 68.5 rushing yards early in the morning for you. This will probably be already settled by the time you wake up, like Chris said, so you can wake up to more money in your account to play some live bets on the rest of the week.
4.2 yards per carry so far this season for Travis Etienne. And like you mentioned, they're feeding him the football, right? Against the Texans, 19 carries. He had only 12 carries against the Kansas City Chiefs. That was a ugly game, especially when they total, I think it was around 50 some odd points, or I think it was like 52 points in that as a total. That game only ended up with 26. But again, week 1 against the Colts, like you mentioned there, Rod, 18 carries, 77 yards for Travis Etienne. And, when he's going up against, weaker rush defenses, that yards per carry number is right there. And again, with the amount of times they're feeding the ball, just simple math makes you think that he should definitely get over this number against the Falcons. And again, it's a great point that I think I do expect the Jags to go out there and win this football game. And if they are ahead by, double digits or whatever the case might be, that they're just going to hand it off to Mr. Travis Etienne. So I agree about Etienne in this game here. Chris, thoughts on that?
Yeah, that was game script. I'm a big game script guy, and I see it kind of going that way, so I won't beat a dead horse. But yeah, it makes a lot of sense to me. This was actually something I was looking at as well, Rod. So maybe I'll definitely put it in now since Rod likes it as well.
All right, before we get over to Chris's second player prop, let me tell you guys about VSiN. We're also brought to you by VSiN. Sign up now and save 40% off a football season special when you use promo code SGP. That's VSIN.com/subscribe using promo code SGP. Sean and Ryan are in a contest going head-to-head with other VSiN shows to see who sells the most subscriptions. The winning show gets a $1,000 Super Bowl future. The best part is Sean and Ryan are going to cut you in on the prize if they win. So all you got to do is follow 2 simple steps. Go to VSiN.com/subscribe and use promo code SGP to sign up. And then step 2, go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/VSiN. That's VSIN to submit your proof of purchase. If they win, you'll get a vote on which team to use for the $1,000 Super Bowl future. And if it hits, you'll get an equal piece of the action. So go to VSiN.com/subscribe and then use promo code SGP. And then make sure to go over to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/VSiN to submit your proof of purchase. And last but not least, we're also brought to you by Hall of Fame Bets. Win bigger by betting smarter this NFL season with Hall of Fame Bets, the sports betting analytics platform for parlays, player props, and game lines. Research every NFL, NBA, MLB, and soccer bets with historical stats and data. Enter any parlay idea into Hall of Fame Bets revolutionary parlay optimizer tool to get hit rates broken down by leg, as well as the expected probability for the entire parlay. Sort all players by hit rate for any bet to learn which players are hot and which picks have value. Stop betting in the dark and join over 30,000 users researching with Hall of Fame Bets to craft more intelligent, data-driven parlays. So download the Hall of Fame Bets app or visit hofbets.com and use promo code SGPN to get 50% off your first month today. Start researching and start winning with Hall of Fame Bets. All right, Chris, take us over to player prop number 2, my friend. What do you got?
Hey, so probably the spiciest game on the slate for this weekend. We got the Bills, and we have them playing against the Dolphins, right?
Yeah.
So game script for this one, I think, is really important as well, right? I like James Cook. I like his rush attempts, right? Over 13.5. Actually, plus money on DraftKings right now. You can get a 12.5, but I wouldn't even play the 12.5. I'd go get the 13.5 because I do think that he'll run the ball 14 times in this game. So 15 and 17 attempts in his last 2 games, which is actually the 9th most carries in the league over the last 2 weeks. After that horrible offensive performance that we saw on opening night against Aaron Rodgers and the Jets, where they decided they just weren't going to run the ball and let's just throw it with Josh Allen every single time and see how many interceptions he can throw in a game. So you look at this, you look at the Dolphins, they've actually looked really, really great. Kind of hard to find a flaw. But if you go through and look at the numbers, they're actually giving up the 8th most yards per attempt to the rush, right?
Yep.
Teams haven't been able to run the ball as frequently, of course, because they've been playing from behind. The Bills are 2.5-point favorites, 3-point favorites at some books right now. And I think a key to the Bills winning this game and actually slowing down that Miami offense will be keeping that offense off the field, right? You don't want to see those guys on the field. So slowing that offense down will start with handing the ball off to Mr. James Cook. They've had a lot of success doing so in the last couple of weeks. Also, he's averaging, well, they're actually giving up that Miami defense 6.1 yards per attempt. And I talked about him over the last couple of weeks, 44 rushes, which is 40. Well, over the season, all 3 weeks, he's actually rushed the ball 44 times, which is 49% of the rush attempts out of that backfield. So he's not really competing with anybody. That's with Josh Allen, 12 attempts. And 4 wide receivers, doing those wacky reverse type plays as well. So no real competition. I think that game script tells me that he's going to get the ball. I don't expect that defense to give up a lot of points and for them to be playing behind in this particular situation this weekend. So James Cook over 13.5 rush attempts, plus 105 right now over on DraftKings.
I mean, you take a look at what he's done over the last 2 weeks, like you mentioned there, Chris, averaging 7.2 yards per carry against the Raiders. And then last week, 6.5 yards per carry. And again, we came into the season with the Buffalo Bills that they wanted to be more focused on running the football. I think this is a game where you're going to need to do that because, Chris, you absolutely nailed it, is that you want to keep that offense off the field and you want to run the football tick, 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 let that clock run down and melt the clock here and maybe shorten the game here a little bit. But yeah, I like it, man. Again, I think there's something that you also may want to look at. I'll expand on this as well. As probably his longest rushing attempt to go over that number. The first 3 weeks, he's had a long rush attempt of 13 yards, 36 yards against the Vegas Raiders, and then 34 yards against the Commanders last week. So I really like this problem. I'm going to write this one down for sure for myself as well here. Rodney, thoughts on James Cook this week?
So I think he will get his fair share of carries, but I think that the Dolphins obviously they're such a quick strike offense too, that it kind of can play both ways, where the Dolphins can still end up running stuff up because they can score quickly and the Bills will try to slow it down, but I still think that there's plenty of opportunity for all the Dolphins to get theirs while the Bills continue to try to grind it down at the same time. So I think both of them are going to be able to implement whatever offense they want. Just a matter of if that involves James Cook. And I like the guy. I really think he needs to get more play anyways, and honestly. But, I'm with you on this.
All right. Player prop number 2 for me. I am going to go to the battle of Chris just talked about the spiciest game of the week. I'm going to go over to the toilet bowl of the week. The Vikings and the Panthers, battle of winless teams here. I'm going to look at Adam Thielen, over 4.5 receptions in this game. You take a look at over the last 2 weeks, Adam Thielen's seen a drastically significant increase in targets over the last 2 weeks of the regular season. Now, I know last week they didn't have Bryce Young because he was dealing with the ankle injury. Seems like he's going to be on track to play this week, but Thielen leads this Panthers team in targets so far through the first 3 weeks of the regular season. He's also gone over this projection of 4.5 receptions in each last 2 weeks, which had a combined of 18 receptions on 23 targets. And there's also possibly a revenge game for Adam Thielen going up against his former team. And also add this, right? We've talked about how bad the Vikings defense is. I don't know if you guys saw, but Justin Jefferson was not happy about this defense, and he posted something on his Instagram story. But just to put into context here, the Vikings defense, one of the worst in the league. The Vikings are allowing the 7th most receptions to the wide receiver position, and also the 4th most receiving yards to that wide receiver position. Again, that only makes sense because we typically see this Vikings team in shootouts. I know they haven't gone over their total, I think, in 2 of the first 3 games as far as game totals, but that secondary, it's not very good for this Vikings team. I think I'm expecting Adam Thielen to take advantage of that and continue his dominance of what he's been able to do over the last 2 weeks for this Panthers offense. So I think this might be a ladder opportunity as well, but I do like Adam Thielen to go over 4.5 receptions in this game here against his former team in the Minnesota Vikings here. Rod, any thoughts on that?
There is something to be said about the revenge narrative. There always is. I mean, I know that the players are always like, I've never let that play into it. No, he knows that the way he got kind of pushed out because he was the shiny toy until Justin Jefferson came in, right? It was all about Adam Thielen. And then when Justin Jefferson came in, the oxygen was sucked out of the room and he kind of got pushed to the side. So, he wants to prove that he was not the afterthought, that he is the wide receiver 1. What better way to do it than to torch his old team and show him that he should not have been dealt the way he was.
Chris, thoughts on Adam Thielen?
If I know you said you were writing down, James Cook. I wrote down Thielen when you said that. I immediately thought of revenge narrative, as you said. But then, you just take a look at the last couple of weeks, like you said. If I don't know for the viewers, if they really got a chance to let that hit home. But last 2 weeks, this dude is actually 5th in the league in receptions with 18. And then you go look at his targets, and he's 5th in the league. Right behind, you never guess, Justin Jefferson, who he has 23 targets and Justin Jefferson has 26. So I love this one. I'll be there with you on this for sure.
All right, let's kick off round 3 of our player props. Rod, lead us off, my friend.
All right, well, we are going to go with a defensive stat because that's what I love the most. We're going to go with Zaire Franklin of the Colts, linebacker for those of you who pay attention to offensive players only. Zaire Franklin of the Colts. They're taking on the Rams. His total tackle number is set at 10.5. I'm going to take the over. I know it sounds crazy at -115 to take the over, but I'm going to read you the amount of tackles Zaire Franklin has had over the last 3 weeks. He started the season with 17 tackles against the Jacksonville Jaguars. He had 10 solo tackles alone. Then he followed up with 13 against the Texans, 15 against the Ravens last week. He broke this prop mark in solo tackles alone last week with 11 of them. Zaire Franklin is an absolute monster. He's going up against the Rams this week, and we talked about earlier as far as the Rams and how many numbers of plays that they are playing this season so far. It's a lot of time on the field for the defense to get tackles, right? And it's proof because against the Rams, Seahawks, 48 tackles. The Niners, 48 total tackles. The Bengals were lower at 36 total tackles, but no Bengal player got more than 8 tackles last week against them, which was, I guess a good thing. But in the week prior, the Niners, Fred Warner with 11, Dre Greenlaw with 11, Shavarius Ward with 10, Demondre Lenore at 10. So there was 4 guys with double-digit tackles against the Rams in the opening week. Seattle had a monster game out of Bobby Wagner, 18 total tackles in that one. Jordan Brooks with 12 total tackles against the Rams. There are several players that get double-digit tackles against the Rams in a single game. And you're telling me that one of the leading tacklers in the league doesn't have that same opportunity against the Rams? You're crazy. Give me Zaire Franklin over 10.5 total tackles at -115 in the game.
I'm telling that the odds are at -115 for this prop, right? And again, that just kind of tells you where the books are thinking about for this defensive prop here. So again, I mean, Rod, you backed it up with the stats there. Again, it makes a lot of sense for me, so I'm not going to argue against it. Chris, any thoughts on that?
Nah, I mean, this guy is number one in the league. Like I don't know if Rob mentioned that, but he does have more tackles than any other team, and he's average. I mean, 29 through 3 games is absolutely insane, and I wouldn't argue it at all.
Chris, take us over to your third player problem, man. What do you got?
Let's go back to the toilet bowl game, and let's look opposite side at receivers. And this one, just I probably should have been playing this every single week, just because this guy is so elite. Justin Jefferson, man, his receiving yards they just continue to go up, but they still aren't close to what his numbers are. 100.5 right now, and that's minus 115 on Bet365. Before Sunday, mark my words, before Sunday, this will be up to probably about 102, 103. So if you want it, you definitely want to jump in on it early. You look at this Panthers defense, and they've actually allowing the 9th fewest passing yards per game. But you got to take a look at who they've actually played. Atlanta and Ritter, not that much. New Orleans, their car kind of getting acclimated to that offense, not as much either. And then Seattle, right? So none of those really elite quarterbacks. Justin Jefferson has 149 yards in every single game that he's played in so far this season. We know what he came out and said over the offseason about what he wants to do this season. 3rd in the NFL in receptions, 1st in yards, 3rd in targets. I could go on and on and on, but I won't. Cousins also completed more passes than any quarterback in the NFL, more pass attempts than anybody in the NFL, and more passing yards than anybody in the NFL. He's looking for his guy. So, we talked about the shiny new toy. I'm pretty sure Justin Jefferson may be thinking the same thing this year in this week when he goes up against Thielen in that offense. And also the other point to mention is this. The Vikings defense is not that good. So we think that, this is going to be a game where they kind of run away with it. Maybe. But I still think Carolina, as better their offense has been, only averaging 18 points per game throughout the season, I still think they'll be able to score a few points, and Justin Jefferson will need to get over this number. So give me Justin Jefferson. I know it's a big number. I don't really care. 100 yards for Justin Jefferson again, 110 yards.
I mean, you rattle off the numbers. He's around 100. He's averaging almost right about 150 yards receiving per game. I mean, that's just unheard of. And again, the targets are always going to be there for Jefferson. And again, going back to game script and game flow, if the Vikings are down, I even think they are up. I think they're still going to continue throwing the football. And Jefferson, again, he could get this done in 2-3 catches, because if you take a look at some of his longest receptions on the season thus far, 52-yard reception, a 30-yard reception, and then a 42-yard reception. So that's either about 33 to 40% right there. And then in one catch against the Chargers, he had 52% of it just in one catch. So, I mean, if you're just talking about the amount of targets this guy is getting, it just makes sense. It's just 1 + 1 = 2 here. So, I mean, I'm not going to argue against Justin Jefferson. I took the over on his season-long player props when we talked about the NFC North. So more power to him. It seems like he's on track to get this done by week 8 or 9, the way this guy is going right now. Rod, any thoughts on JJ?
He's averaging 17 yards per catch and 168 yards after the catch. So it doesn't even matter. It could take 5-6 catches for him to break one loose and be over this mark. So yeah, it's not gonna take many catches for him to do this. I think he's going to get it done this week.
All right. Player prop number 3 for myself. I'm going to go back to that Texans and the Steelers game. And I think this is a buy low spot for me. Dameon Pierce, I'm going to take the over on his rushing yards. And I know historically when we talk about the Steelers team, we talk about how good their defense is supposed to be, especially on the ground. But it's been the completely opposite story, at least through the first 3 weeks of this regular season. So to put into context, the Steelers rank number 30 in rushing yards allowed per game at around 152 per game. They're also allowing 5.2 yards per carry, which ranks number 29 in the league. And if you're going to go back and look at the running backs that they have faced over the first 3 weeks, at least one running back from each team has gone over this projection. So let's go back to week 1. Christian McCaffrey rushed for 152 yards on the ground. Week 2, before Nick Chubb left the game with that injury, he already had 64 rushing yards on the ground on 10 carries. You bring in his backup, Jerome Ford, who rushed for 106 yards after Nick Chubb left that game. Last week, Josh Jacobs on 17 carries, 62 yards on the ground. And I know Dameon Pierce in the first 3 weeks has struggled, but he's gone up against some of the better rush defenses in the league. He's faced the number 6, the number 7, and the number 13th ranked rush defenses in yards per attempt allowed. And again, when you're going up against one of the worst teams, I think that Dameon Pierce should have a little bit of more success. And asking him to get at least 48 rushing yards here, I think that this is a good buy low spot for Dameon Pierce. So I'm going to go over on his 47 and a half rushing yards here, Rod.
Yeah, it feels low for a guy that can. And obviously, if Stroud can do what he can do, he might be playing from ahead. I mean, it's not, this Steelers team has not looked like it's been able to put teams away. So there's still going to be rushing opportunities for the Texans later in the game, which definitely puts this in play.
Chris, any thoughts on Dameon Pierce here?
Yeah, I like it. I like it as well. You know, and you guys kind of hit the nails on the head. For me, that's how you want to attack Pittsburgh, right? Like you kind of routed off all the numbers going back to all the way back to week 1, you know? So yeah, absolutely.
All right. So that is 3 player props each. We'll get into best bets here in a minute, but we're going to give out our touchdown props for this upcoming week. Rod, you want to lead us off?
Yes, sir. I will give you Mike Evans anytime touchdown prop. This is one of those things where for Mike Evans, and I'll have to eat my words when it comes to Baker Mayfield, because he's actually been able to get something done with what he's got. Mike Evans has scored a touchdown in every single game that he's appeared in this season. Baker Mayfield needs him. Baker Mayfield needs Mike Evans to get in the end zone to actually bail him out and to be somebody that can, actually make him look better than I think he actually is. No offense, Baker. I know you're an NFL football quarterback and I am not, but I'm just saying you're there for a reason right now. So I think Mike Evans has a very good shot at getting into the end zone this week. I know that the Saints have actually not allowed a wide receiver to get a touchdown against them this week, but that means that the dam's going to have to break, right? They haven't allowed anybody in the end zone as far as receivers. They've gone against Hopkins. They've gone against Adam Thielen. They've gone against Romeo Doubs. None of them got in the end zone against this Saints team. However, like I said, that's going to have to change. And what better way for better way to happen than for Mike Evans to get in there? So his anytime touchdown right now is at plus 180. I like that.
All right. Chris, any touchdown props?
A couple of them that I'm looking at, but I'll give you guys, let's see, which one do I like the most? Honestly, I like a couple of the guys that I kind of talked about already, but let's go with Chris Olave. I like Chris Olave to score this week. You just kind of look at how many targets he's actually getting, and I'll kind of talk a little bit more about this when we get into the final segment, but I like Chris Olave to score. They're feeding him the ball, and he has double-digit receptions in every single game. The Saints offense is going to need to score, and they'll probably do it through him at least until they can get their full complementary of running backs. I think they still continue to pass the ball. So give me Chris Olave to score this week.
I like it. All right, I'll give you out a couple. I mean, I'm just going to go back to the well. Number 1, last 2 weeks is cash for me. Tank Dell. That number is now at 3-1. So they're starting to catch on a little bit, but again, he sees the opportunity for this Texans offense. I mean, I'm not going to regurgitate everything I've said over the last 3 weeks about Tank Dell, but he's that downfield threat. There was an opportunity for him to be the first touchdown scorer last week in this Texans game against the Jaguars. He fell about 1.5 yards short, right in front of the goal line on that deep catch that he did have, but he's seizing the opportunity. So at 3-1, I really do like him to find the end zone. I'm going to go over to that game between the other Toilet Bowl game. Stay tuned to run a best bet in that game. But this Denver rush defense has not been very good this season. They are allowing 2.3 rushing touchdowns per game through the first 3 weeks of the regular season. So I'm going to look at the 2 running backs here, Khalil Herbert at plus 185 and also Roschon Johnson at plus 195. I know it's not the greatest prices or the most exciting prices, but they're that low for the reason. I think the books know that this rushing defense for the Denver Broncos has not been very good. So I will go with those 2 guys. And then Let's go back to the revenge angle. Adam Thielen to find the end zone. That number is at plus 225. I currently see. I believe he did get into the end zone last week, if I'm not mistaken, for the Panthers offense. He's actually recorded 2 touchdowns this season already, one each over the last 2 weeks. And again, like I mentioned when we were talking about him, targets are up for him, receptions are up for him, yardage is up for him. So I think that he's a great red zone target if it is either Bryce Young or Andy Dalton at quarterback for this Panthers team. So a couple that I do like there for touchdown props. All right, guys, let's wrap up the show with our best bets for our NFL Week 4 player props. Rod, why don't you lead us off, my friend?
So I found one on DraftKings that pits together either Tyreek Hill or Devontae Adams to have 150 or more receiving yards in their game. This one is set at plus 450. Take it. Take this. Either Tyreek Hill or Devontae Adams to have 150 receiving yards in this game. I almost feel like it could be Devontae Adams all by himself. I mean, I get that he only hit 172 once. He's only been over that mark once so far this season, but he did play the Bills, had 84 against the Bills, 66 against Denver. I know Jimmy Garoppolo is being monitored right now, but I kind of feel like that's even better for him because then they'll definitely be playing from behind, and they're going to have to get Devontae Adams involved in this game because Devontae Adams is pretty much the only guy that you can trust in this receiving core, in my opinion anyway. So I feel like he's got that opportunity. Plus, what a golden matchup he's got against the Chargers. The Chargers, the worst against the pass, the worst defense, 32nd in the league in opponent passing yards per game, 337 yards they are allowing per game. That's not all told, that's per game. They gave up 215 to Tyreek Hill. Now, I know he blew the curve a little bit, but still 215 to Tyreek Hill, held the Titans in check, but then who are the Titans passing to? But gave up 149, 1 yard short of this mark for Justin Jefferson to hit this. So wide receiver 1 is having a field day against the Chargers. So I think Devontae Adams could very much get it by himself. Tyreek Hill, do I really have to make a case for Tyreek Hill? I know he's going against the Bills, and like I said, they held Devontae to 84 yards in his matchup, but this is Tyreek Hill. 215 against the Chargers, 157 against Denver. I mean, he only had 40 against New England, but, you know, that was him not at full capacity, so I don't know. Tyreek's just an absolute and total freak, and I think there's no way that anybody can hold him at this point, let alone the Bills, even though they've got a really good pass defense. So do a lot of teams against Tyreek Hill. What does he do? He tears them up. So if you're giving me 2 of the best receivers in the league right now to get 150 yards, I'll take that bet, especially at plus 450. Yes, please.
Put this in the context for you. So last season, Devontae Adams in his first season with the Raiders faced the Chargers twice, obviously being in the same division. The first game on September 11th, 10 receptions on 17 targets, 141 receiving yards. Second game, December 4th, 8 receptions on 12 targets, 177 yards by Devontae Adams. And again, I wanted to give out Devontae Adams prop on the show this week, but those props haven't dropped yet. So that's going to be something that's definitely on my list. But I'm glad that, Rod, you found that prop for sure. Chris, take us over to your best bet for NFL Week 4, my friend. What do you got?
So to Rod's point, you just take Devontae Adams and you alt whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like, so if this line comes out at 200, just alt it to 275. just add a little. So I love that from Rod. Rod always finding those hidden gems, and plus 450. I think I'm gonna go put a little sprinkle on that as well, Rod. And I kind of alluded to this one for myself. You know, I kind of alluded to this already. I like Chris Olave, man. I really like Chris Olave. His receptions this week are sitting at 5.5, and that's my best bet. Plus 110 over on BetMGM. So I love that you can get it for plus money. You look at the Saints, they're averaging just 3.4 yards per rush attempt. I kind of alluded to that just a tad bit when I talked about him scoring his anytime touchdown. That's 27th in the league. So they aren't running the ball. I don't expect them to be able to run the ball in this week as well. Olave been a savior for this team. He's had 6 catches, which is what his number is right now. I think that the plus money will go away eventually on this one, but he's had 6 catches once. In the other 2 weeks, he's actually had 8 catches. Double-digit targets, like I said, in all 3 games. I think it's 10, 11, and 11 or 11, 11, and 10. And he ranks 8th in the league in receptions, even with Carr and Jameis Winston at quarterback. So I love that. You also just look at the defense. Teams are passing the ball at the 12th highest rate against the Buccaneers. So look for Olave to have a big week again this week, and he also is someone that I took season-long player prop for. So it's a double good one for me.
Yeah, I think for the Saints this week, they're going to have to throw the football, and if it is Jameis Winston back there, because we know Derek Carr is dealing with that injury, more than likely, I think it is going to be Jameis Winston that they're going to fling the ball around. And again, this Buccaneers rush defense is still elite right now. They've been able to limit the opposing running backs that they have faced for the first 3 weeks, and again, that's just going to have to enable the Saints to throw the football. And something that also kind of stuck out to me, that you take a look at the longest receptions this season for Chris Olave, 28, 42, and 45. So I think that's something else that we probably need to write down on our list. Longest reception for Chris Olave to go over. But I mean, you nailed it. Double-digit targets. He's gone over this number in all 3 weeks so far this season. So yeah, I also have Chris Olave on my fantasy teams here as well. So hopefully he has a big week against the Buccaneers for this Sunday. All right, for my best bet, you guys are probably going to make your WTF face at me, but I think this is a buy low situation. I think this is something last week we talked about, Chris, when we talked about Deshaun Watson going up against the Titans pass defense. I'm going to go with Mr. Russell Wilson, Mr. Unlimited, to go over on his passing yards this week. And we talked about the Bears secondary, right? I mean, this team is in absolute shambles right now, both on the field and off the field. We talked about this last week, everything that's gone on with their, defensive coordinator, but we're talking about on the field stuff here. It just hasn't been very pretty. I'm not going to rattle off the stats because all the football fans know how bad the secondary has been for the Chicago Bears. So we'll take a look at the 3 quarterbacks that they have faced this season. And let me give you the number for Russell Wilson before I actually get into the numbers of the actual passing yards for the opposing quarterback. So his number for this week is at 232.5. That's at -105 right now, currently over on DraftKings. So the 3 quarterbacks that have faced the Bears defense have been Mr. Jordan Love, week 1, 245 passing yards. Baker Mayfield, week 2, 317 passing yards. And then last week, Mr. Patrick Mahomes in 3 quarters had 303 passing yards against that Bears secondary. And you take a look at Russell Wilson this season. I mean, it hasn't been too bad for him. I know week 1, he went up against the Raiders, who we thought he should have, torched that defense, but he only had 177 passing yards in that game. But we talk about against the Commanders in week 2 at home, 308 passing yards in that game. And then against Miami last week, obviously in a come from behind situation, he had to throw the football, 306 passing yards in that game. So this might be one of those games where I think we might see some back forward with 2 atrocious defenses. I think Justin Fields should have a good game. I think it's a very low number here at 232.5 for Russell Wilson, who's done it in a back-to-back week. So, again, I think that he can get into the neighborhood of 300 yards in this game. So I'm going to take the over on his passing yards for Mr. Russell Wilson, over 232.5 passing yards. That's -105 on DraftKings currently for Mr. Russell Wilson here. Chris, any thoughts on that?
That is not surprising at all. I absolutely love that, and I wrote that one down as well. I will be playing that, and it's for the reasons that you kind of named. I was wondering how I was going to attack this game as well, and just hadn't had time to really dive too deep in it. But Rob mentioned the Chargers pass defense giving up the most passing yards in the NFL. 337 is unheard of. No team has even given up 300 other than Seattle. But then when you start to look at the other numbers, Chicago is right there. So it's Chargers, absolute worst. They're like off the cliff, like shouldn't even be in the NFL. Then you have Seattle, which is also right there with them. And then Chicago, like you said, 285 yards per game is what they're allowing. And we just need Russell Wilson. I say we because I'm also playing this as well. We only need him to go for 233. Sign me up. I'll take it.
Rod, any thoughts on that?
If you are a DFS player, watch out for stacks against both of these defenses because it is going to be trouble. I just saw there's an article, I think, from SI that said, is it wise to stack against these 2 defenses for DFS purposes? Yes, it is. And that's exactly what the case you're laying out for. So, yeah, I definitely think that, Bears defense is bad. They're bad. They don't even know what they're doing right now. So, yeah, any chance to fade them is a good chance.
All right, that is it for NFL Week 4 of our player props. Rod, anything that I missed that we need to tell our listeners?
No, there is something that I missed, though. I want to
Yeah.
go back to the 450 bet was not on DraftKings. It was on FanDuel. So don't go looking for it on DraftKings. Unfortunately, I'm sorry. I didn't write it down. I was just so excited to get it on the page that I forgot where it came from. But it's FanDuel, not DraftKings.
All right. Yeah, week 4 in the books here. Hopefully we did find some more winners here. But Chris, anything else you want to mention, my friend, before we get out of here?
Yeah, I think I also forgot. I'm glad Ryan mentioned that. I forgot to give out Olave, a number for Olave. His anytime touchdown is plus 187. So almost 2-1. I like that number. But yeah, that's it. Definitely check out all my work. We got WNBA coming up. NBA, I'm gonna be doing some season previews here soon. Hopefully you can join me on that.
Yeah.
Because NBA is right around the corner. It's getting real spicy. The fifth will be here before you know it. So we'll have preseason. And follow all my work over on Twitter, X at Crispy Captain, 2 P's, 2 N's.
Yeah, man, we're going to ramp it up for NBA Propcast as well. So I'm working on the plans for that. But me and Chris are definitely going to be on that for sure for the upcoming NBA season right in the corner. So definitely excited for that as always. Rod, anything else we want to mention before we get out of here?
Just follow me on X at RJ Villagomez. Link in the bio, everything I got going on. NASCAR still in full fling. Got some prop articles that are coming out for Sportsbook Review as well. Some extra props on there. But yeah, just keep up with me on X. Not you on X, me on X.
Yeah, that is it for week 4. We'll be back next Thursday for our regular programming. Again, like we mentioned, make sure to follow Rod on X at RJ Villagomez. You can follow Chris on X at Crispy Captain with 2 P's and 2 N's. You can follow me on X at SportsNerd824. And again, you still have time if you get this before the Thursday night football game to go back and listen to the Thursday night football player props. Hopefully we do find some winners then. We'll recap everything next week. Hopefully we found some more winners here. I think we would have a pretty good season. But till then, good luck with your bets. Let's break these books off and let it ride.